Hello everyone, thank you for joining in. This is Screen Southasia, ninth edition. Yay! And this weekend we screened the film Rasan Piya by Niharika, which explores the life and music of Ustad Abdul Rashid Khan, an extraordinary musician, poet, and teacher. The director of the film, Niharika, is with us, along with cinematographer who is like a bit caught up in immigration, but will join us soon, Akshay Madan. So before we begin, I would like our editor, Roman Gautam, to just welcome our guest.
I'm going to keep it short. Niharika, so good to see you again.
Good
Our
to see
paths
you
have
again.
crossed before in Delhi, and now they
Yes.
cross on Zoom.
Yes.
Thank you especially for everyone joining us. Niharika and Akshay, who will be joining us shortly, are actually out in Europe on where I think the film has taken them. If I'm not mistaken, maybe I am mistaken on that.
We are just here to meet some friends.
Okay,
Yes.
super. But I'm really glad that you guys made the time to be with us even during your trip. So yeah, I mean, like I said, I had crossed paths with Niharika earlier, and we had spoken about this film, and she had kindly sent a screening link to me, and I had watched it back then. This was maybe 6 months ago, maybe a little bit more. And this weekend got the chance to rewatch it. And I'm not someone who rewatches things very often, but this film repays rewatching and re-rewatching. If I get to watch it a third time, I will. It's an incredible story. I think both the story of an incredible artist, but also the story of an incredible life with Ustad Abdul Rashid Khan. I mean, his life tells such a story of just the subcontinent and everything that happened in his long and eventful life. And I think, of course, there's the question of heritage, but I think also just want to raise the question of patronage, because I think that the big question facing his, the music that he loved and the art that he loved so much is how it will survive and thrive in new forms of patronage, because so much of the old world that he was so familiar with has died out. Of course, a difficult question, but an important one for us to keep in mind, perhaps. But anyway, I won't go on about that. I just want to say a big thank you. Akshay will be joining us shortly, but thank you to him in advance, Niharika, and especially a big thank you to you for being here and for the beautiful film. I'll leave you in Alok and Sana's hands.
Thank you, Roman. Thank you. Happy to see you again.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Roman. I'm going to quickly introduce our guest. Today, Niharika is a dear friend. She's an independent filmmaker and editor based in Delhi. Rasan Piya, which we screened today, is a debut documentary, and it received the Tariq Masood Award for Best Debut Film at FSA in 2017. It also traveled the world as part of the TFSA package after that. I joined FSA after that and saw it as part of the TFSA package. The film also won a special jury mention at the MoMA International Film Festival in 2016. Niharika has worked on several short and feature-length documentaries as an editor. She completed If I Could Tell You, her second documentary feature in 2023. It is a story of 6 young people finding expression and meaning as they navigate their space in a city. Her most recent work was a collaboration with Royston Abel, an audiovisual stage production titled Weaving Voices, which premiered at Mahindra Roots Festival in 2023. Akshay, who will hopefully be joining us very soon, is a web developer and cinematographer and a musician and so many things. Akshay does a lot of things. Akshay works collaboratively on projects involving aspects of code, visual design, cinema, and journalism. Thank you both, or thank you, Niharika, for being here. Over to you, Sana.
Hopefully he'll join us soon.
Thank
you,
Alok. So I think, Niharika, I think you attended one of the concerts of Ustad Abdul Rashid Khan in college. So could you talk about that experience and what pushed you to make this documentary on him?
Yeah, so this was, I think it was 2008. Now I've forgotten, but I think it was 2008, where I was in NSIT Delhi University. It was an engineering college, and SPICMK, which is an NGO that organizes a lot of concerts of classical music, dance, and theater. They had organized a concert by him in our college, and before that, I hadn't really heard classical music, and I wasn't willing to hear classical music on that day. But since we were first-year students, we were forced to sit and attend his concert to fill up the auditorium. So that was my first experience of listening to him. But once I heard him, it really his music really moved me, and I wanted to know more. So whenever he would perform in Delhi or in and around Delhi, I would try and go and attend as many of his concerts as possible. And then through him, a whole world of classical music opened up for me, and I got interested. That was the end of it. And then I finished my engineering and I started working in an NGO. I was teaching there. But at a time when I had left my job, I think around 2012, and I attended a concert that was organized in Chandigarh, which they were celebrating his 104th, Abdul Rashid Khan Saab's 104th birthday. So I attended that concert, and it was a beautiful concert. And I met his grandson, and I asked him if there was any material available on him. At that time, I thought I'll write about him. I hadn't even seen a documentary, so a thought of making a documentary could not have occurred to me. But I wanted to, see as much as I could about him, or read or listen to his music. But I realized that there wasn't a lot available. So I started writing about him, but through that process, I realized that he was a really interesting person. So Akshay and I actually pulled in some money. Akshay was the cinematographer. So we pulled in some money and we booked a studio for a day and we recorded music with him, which was a really lovely experience. And then we got to know him a little bit more, and we thought, oh, he's such an interesting person. We should also buy a camera. We bought a camera and we started shooting with him, not knowing how much time the film will take. We thought for me, it was like an in-between jobs kind of a thing. I thought I'll film for a couple of weeks and come back and the film will be made. But that didn't happen. It took us 2.5 years to make the film. And through the process, we met some interesting filmmakers, like some really experienced filmmakers who guided us. And, Akshay and I both did a course in between. He learned cinematography, I learned direction. It was a 1-month course. We did that. We went back to shoot him and kept shooting and kept editing. And 2.5 years later, this film was made. And yeah, that's the story.
That's really a labor of love. Could you talk about the research process? You touched on this a little bit for the film. Despite Ustad being such a renowned musician, there was actually like no material about him except a research paper, I think. And how did you gather more material about him?
So the research part of it, as much as I could do, like whatever I could read up about him, there was a book which was written by which was a PhD thesis on him, on his music, which I read. And then I tried and I met anybody and everybody who had heard his music, who knew anything about him, musicians, like music connoisseurs in Delhi, in Calcutta, Lucknow, wherever, like I could find people who knew about him, who understood his music, who had been associated with him in any capacity. I went and interviewed everybody. At that time, not knowing that, whether or not it would be part of the film, but I wanted to know about him. That was one part of it. The other was actually just being with him and observing him. And we spent many, many, many hours with him, many days, many months with him, living in his house and observing his classes and trying to understand his music better. And Akshay, my partner, who's the cinematographer of the film, he was already a student of music. He was learning sitar from Ustad Abdul Rashid Khan. So he also had a understanding of classical music. That was the research, and then nothing more. I mean, we wanted to make sure that we do justice to his story, and we wanted to be as sincere as we could. So we tried to do
that. Makes sense.
Yeah.
Niharika, so we'll just play a clip from the film, and
I'll mute myself.
माँ का बहुत बड़ा दर्जा है, बाप से भी बड़ा दर्जा है। जब बच्चा पालने में आता है या माँ की गोद में होता है तो एक चीज होती है लोरी। सजर भैया सजर, अब कान में उनके सुर पड़ रहा है, भैया को सुला रहे हैं। आजर दिया आजा रे भैया की अखियन में घुल मिल जाए। के कान में पड़ रहा है, कैसे ना सुर, वो कैसे ना सुर घुसाएगा उनके दिल में।
Thanks, Sana. Ustad calls music immortal, and he says music is everywhere. There's another section where he says that even if you're talking, that is music. Could you talk about his approach towards music and how music gave him power to recover from personal challenges?
He was like somebody, like when I observed him, I realized that music was not just a practice for him, it was his whole life. Uh, his day would start early in the morning and, with the hookah and everything, and then his students would start coming in. His students were already at home before he got ready and came into the drawing room, but somewhere around 9, 10 in the morning, he would start teaching. It would go on till about 6 or 7 in the evening, sometimes even later, all day. And then after that, also when he was alone, he was rarely alone, but whenever he was alone, and sometimes I observed him from outside the house, just from the window, he would just be singing or writing. Like there was no taking a break from music, or there was nothing else. Like music was his whole life. So, sorry, what did you ask me? How did he recover? So, I mean, that kind of that kind of passion for something, or that kind of like just being consumed by something like that. I've never seen anybody like that, and I guess that's what gave him. I mean, kept him going despite all the physical handicaps that he had, and all the other problems that he faced in life. This was something that was always there with him and for him, and I think that's what gave him the strength to carry on in life.
Yeah, I think someone also touches on this. Sorry, no, please go on.
I was saying, when he was teaching, it was so special to just be around him and observe the classes and the relationship that he had with his students. It was sometimes while filming, we even, he was already very old when we were filming, and we were mindful of not trying to come in the way of his students' classes with him or anything. We wanted to capture it, but without disturbing anything that like many of the students would come from really far and may not have the chance to learn from him again. So all of that was there, but sometimes just while shooting, we would look at each other and, just we couldn't believe that we were experiencing something so beautiful, and we were part of something so beautiful. His classes were almost like, when we were there, we were cut off. We were also cut off from the rest of the world, and we were just there in that moment experiencing that beautiful music and the relationship that he had with his students and the whole energy that was there in his room. So it was really beautiful. I think that's what gave him the strength to carry on, and also many others.
Okay, so there's one more clip that we want to play. Just a second.
1 2 3 4 1 2 3 4 second. ये है 1 2 1 2 3 1 2 1 यही है.
कभी कभी ऐसे मैंने भी देखा है जो एक तले का गाना है लेकिन वो तीन तल की तरह चल रहा है. क्या तीन तले का गाना है लेकिन एकदम जैसे एक तल है वैसे ही चल रहा है. तो हम लोग भी डर के बैठते हैं, लेकिन थोड़ा सा मालूम है जो खासा आपके पास ऐसा ऐसा है, तो हम लोग क्या करते हैं, थोड़ी देर ठेका नहीं लगाते, एक बार देख लेते हैं जो अंतरा कहाँ पे है, स्थाई कहाँ पे है, कहाँ पे एंड होता है, कितना मात्रा का होता है, तो उसी में थोड़ा बहुत पता चल जाता है. नहीं चले तो पूछ लेते हैं कैसे क्या होगा.
हमारा ये माने यहाँ.
Yeah. So obviously, like, you would have done more research on him, like Khayal and Bandaj that he talks about. So could you explain to a layman, like, what makes this kind of composition tricky, and what makes Satsab's music so unique?
So he was, he was an expert of playing with the beat. So in this particular clip that you played, there was this song, Aisi Nahi Naveli Albe. So it's like, if you're counting the beat to anybody, even to a very experienced musician, you would think that it's 1 2 3 4 1 2 3 4 and that kind of beat. But actually, it was a different combination of it. I mean, he just did, like, he was a very playful musician, and he derived some kind of joy in playing with compositions and tricking his accompanying musicians, the ones who were playing tabla. this was just like, because it's his whole life, he's also playing with it, he's experimenting with that. I mean, and these small things, I mean, these things about his music, I realized not so much by observing, but by having conversations with other musicians who were playing with him, musicians who had heard him. So they would tell me all these things, and then that made me look at his music in a different way. And then I wanted it to be part of the film. This, especially this, his ability to, or his desire to play with the beat was something which was very unique to his style, and I wanted that to be part of the film. So that's it was not a very predictable beat pattern. It was he would always try and play with the beat pattern and mm, try different things within the structure of that beat. So I don't know if I've answered your question.
No, I think you have. So there was one point where you mentioned that a fellow musician poisoned him in the mid 1960s, and that's a very strong rivalry to have, to want to poison someone. Could you tell us more about the incident, possibly, if you know more, and also that kind of, what do you know about the rivalries that exist, and if they still do in that world?
This was not I mean, this was a very common story in that time. This was the time when, because musicians enjoyed patronage during the time of the kingdoms, and after the kingdoms were not there any longer, they didn't have patronage, and there was this new thing of jugalbandi, like a competition between two musicians that started happening. It became a thing, and in a jugalbandi, which was like a competition, one would win and the other would lose. So that resulted in a lot of rivalries, and also there was no patronage, so there was only so much access that, I mean, everybody wanted to be in the same venues, everybody wanted the same grants or whatever was. So there was a lot of rivalry that was happening, and this incident of him being poisoned by mercury was also something that I've heard among many musicians of his generation. It's a very common story of musicians, the rivalries being so strong that people have tried to kill each other, and those kind of rivalries among musicians are not unheard of. I don't know if they still, I don't think they still exist, but I why it's not such a big part of the film was because at this time when I met him, he was already over 100 years old, and this incident was already more than 60, 70 years ago, and it wasn't such a big part of his life by the time I met him. And it wasn't something that he spoke about a lot. I did ask him once, and he did mention it, but I myself wasn't so interested in knowing too much about it, too much about this incident, because by the time, like at the time that I met him, it wasn't such a big part of his life, and there was so much more to his life than that one incident. It was just important to understand what happened to him, why his fingers, and like why was he like that? Because a lot of people probably thought he had leprosy, which he didn't have. So that's why I wanted to ask him, but I didn't really, ask him too many times, or I don't know too much more about it. I don't know where it happened, when it happened, and who did it, and all those things, but that's about it.
And
For me, that wasn't
Neha,
something very important also.
Yeah.
So Niharika, in the film, there's a section where Rashid Saab talks about, that music is prohibited in Islam, but then he says, but there is music in everything. He talks about azan, and then he says there's a, rhythm when you read Quran. And then he also calls himself a Krishna devotee and has written many songs about him. So, I mean, the point being that, like, he sort of says that music has no religion. So, how do you see this film in the current contemporary times where, music has sort of become like one of the tools to like further religious hate, especially in India?
Actually, at the time when I made it before 2014. So now it's taken on a totally different. I've even changed the synopsis of the film, and I'm looking at it differently now. Because before 2014, it wasn't such a big deal for me that, okay, he's a Muslim musician who's also singing about Krishna, because we've seen that, and it wasn't unheard of. There were, this Ganga Jamni Tehzeeb that we keep talking about, where there are, especially in Uttar Pradesh and northern part of India, where it's a very beautiful mix of both religions, and especially in dargahs that you see, and also a lot of Hindu musicians singing Qawwali, and all those things are there. So at that time, I didn't think it was such a big deal, and I never even pitched the film like that. I didn't look at the film like as if it was some kind of a like as if this part of him was something most relevant about the film. For me, it was still his music and his ability to sing like that, and even at that age and all those things. But now I am also looking at it differently, and I think that he was a gentle activist, and I feel that these kind of stories, this kind of story, I mean, they are more relevant now than ever before in India, in the current climate of hate. And uh, if only people knew that this was also like, I mean, we can coexist so beautifully like this, it would be so much better. I mean, I would want to screen the film in as many places as possible, probably in RSS Chakras and many other places like that. And uh, I don't know. I don't know what to do about it yet, but um, yeah.
This is your first film, and like director Bani Singh of Tang, who's been on this uh, monthly program, has said that stories are everywhere. And you also came the story, and you came across it, and you picked up your camera. You know, as you described earlier, it was a process as well. What are some of the learnings that you can share with first-time filmmakers in terms of technicalities of filmmaking or collecting funds for marketing and distribution?
Mhm. I mean, so I mean, once you have a story to tell, you'll find a way to tell it. And there are many ways. Like I got a lot of help from a lot of senior filmmakers, and I try and do that. If anybody ever reaches out to me, if someone who's making a film, uh, and the technical aspects of it are, I mean, that they come a little later. Of course, you have to know how to hold a camera, how to use a camera, how to record sound more than anything else. All those things are there, but first of all, what is the story that you want to tell, and how do you want to tell it, and giving it the time that it needs, being patient with it. Those are the things that I feel like I really learned. Because and about, I mean, if you're asking me about funds for marketing and distribution, all of that, I'm really not the right person. I'm still figuring it out, and I don't think I've managed to figure it out yet. I'm struggling with it, and yeah, I haven't. I don't have a lot to share there. It's difficult. It's very difficult. Making the film is one part of it, and then marketing and distributing is, I think, even it's a bigger task than actually making the film for me, for somebody like me. It's not easy to have access to funds. That's what I think. I mean, some people are able to crack that grants circuit or all of that, and I'm also trying to understand that better. But right now, I don't have a lot to share over there. But if you're trying to make a film, and if you have a story in mind, and if you're, really like, if it's a story that's very important to you, if you want to tell it, then you'll find a way to do it. I mean, reach out to people. Don't be afraid to ask for help. Get in touch with senior filmmakers. Show them your footage if you have footage. There are some short courses. There's this course that I did in Pune, in it's a Vikshi Institute. And there's, there are a couple of retired from FTI, Kanal sir and Jayashree ma'am. They are amazing teachers, and they train filmmakers. It's a short month-long course where they teach you the basics of filmmaking, the technical aspects of filmmaking, if that's what you're struggling with. Just how to record, how to break down a scene, very basics of editing and all those things. And right now, everything like technical ability should not come in the way of you telling a story, because everything is available online. Like, I learned editing online, completely online. I learned Final Cut Pro on YouTube, and now I'm doing editing films on DaVinci. All of it is available. So if you really have a story to tell, you'll find a way to tell it. And be sincere to your story. That's all. I don't know. It sounds.
That sounds great.
Very.
Thanks.
In terms of funding, if you could talk about how did you manage to do like marketing and distribution part, and as you mentioned, like your partner is a co-producer. So if you could talk about funding and distribution part just on like basis of this
For
film,
Rasan.
like how did you manage to do it here?
For Rasan Piya, we had zero funding. Okay, so Akshay and I both were working. Akshay is a web developer. He makes websites and apps. I was at that time writing content, and I mean, before that I was teaching, but by the time I started making Rasan Piya, I was I didn't have that job anymore. So I was writing content, and I was also, once I learned editing, I was very quickly editing videos for corporate videos or whatever, that kind of stuff I was doing. So we were earning from that and putting the money into the film. It didn't require a lot of money because the crew was just two people. It was me and Akshay. So what it required was travel, which was also by train, mostly, always by train. And when we stayed also, we stayed in places which didn't cost a lot. So Rasan Piya, making Rasan Piya didn't cost a lot of money, but we made sure that anybody who was involved in the film, like if we ever called somebody to record sound and all, we had money to pay them, which was the correct amount that somebody charges for that kind of service. So we had that, but we didn't pay ourselves. So that's how we ended up making Rasan Piya. But marketing and all never happened with Rasan Piya. I blindly started applying to all the festivals that by the time I finished the film, I knew of. And I also realized that not a lot of festivals, Film Southasia took it, and that also really helped me. I mean, it gave me a lot of confidence first. Like, I believe that the film was okay, and also other people took it seriously because it went to Film Southasia and won there. But otherwise, a lot of festivals that you apply to don't actually watch your film because you have to go through a channel, you have to go through a sales agent or a distributor and all of that, and that part I still haven't figured out. I'm trying to figure it out, and I want to figure it out, but I'm working on it. And so marketing and all with Rasan Piya, see, it's a 8-year-old film now, 8 or 9-year-old film, and even now it's screening, and all the screenings are kind of word of mouth. People watch it, and somebody there likes it, and they say, okay, I want to screen it there, I want to screen it there, and that's been the journey of Rasan Piya. It didn't go to major festivals and all because by the time I realized how to do it, the 2 years of making the film were over. And I also didn't have a very good start to the because when I started applying, and I got a lot of negative feedback also in the beginning. But so I wasn't confident enough to apply properly everywhere and all of that. And I missed out on those 2 years of, because most festivals have a 2-year limit. Like the film has to be made within the 2 years of that festival happening. So I missed out on that. And so there was no great marketing or distribution. It all really was word of mouth, and it's all still happening, and it's slowly happening. So I also believe that if a film is good, and it will be noticed and it will be seen, and it'll have its own journey in its own time. Not to say that I want the same thing to happen with everything else that I make. I would want it to be more efficient, the marketing and distribution of it. But with Rasan Piya, it was quite organic, and yeah, that's. I mean, it very little was in my control, and it's not like I was constantly writing to people that please screen it. I mean, I had one screening, and then somebody picked it up from there. It had another screening, and that's pretty much how it was with Rasan Piya in particular. With my second film, I'm trying to reach out to people and. Okay. Sorry, I'm getting some comments, but they're disappearing, so I don't know what I don't know how to read it.
I will read it out for you. So Prabir Casey says, quite amazing person and amazing film, really loved it. Regina says, I love the gentle actress. Shalini Kala says, beautiful film follows so easily and smoothly without any explicit, intrusive presence of the creators, letting the music to be the focus. And she looks forward to your next film. And she has a question, if you're planning to release it on any OTT platform.
Rasan Piya, you're talking about Rasan Piya, right? It was on an OTT for 3 years. It was on movie.com for 3 years.
Yeah.
And so after that, my contract with them expired. So maybe I should reach out to them again to renew it, because movie also opened up a lot of doors for me, because it was picked up by movie, because somebody at movie had seen it at a film festival, and it was on movie, and it's a beautiful OTT platform where independent cinema is noticed and is promoted. It's not like Netflix where, of course, I would like my film to be on Netflix, but it gets lost there. A lot of times independent cinema gets lost there, and it's not noticed among all the other stuff that's there. Movie really promotes your film very well, and I've had a very good experience with them. So when it was on movie also, I got a lot of screenings through that, because many people saw it and then would get in touch with me, write to me, and then organize screenings. So that was also. Tarini saying something, but it just comes and disappears, so I wasn't able to read it.
So good to hear from this film.
Oh, thank you,
Alok, you can read this one out.
Yeah, we'll read this out to you. Don't worry about it. Hi, Niharika. So good to hear about this film after many years. Also, even though doc filmmaking has changed a lot, yours and very few others retain something important because they don't go through the big spaces. All of that has a special place, of course. here for the nostalgia from almost a decade ago. I got to go now, but glad to see you see the film circulate. Thanks, Himal.
Thank you. Thank you.
So Niharika, I wanted to talk to you about the editing process because I know you edit, re-edit, and really go through the process. And you mentioned that you shot this film for 2 years, 2.5 years.
2.5 years.
So yeah, so I mean, you must have had like a lot of footage. So what was, what was sort of the objective during the editing process?
With Rasan Piya, again, everything. I mean, since it was my first time, now I think a lot more about the editing process. That time it was more doing, and I mean, of course, I was thinking about it and I was writing a lot. But the first cut that I made, I also was editing that film as we were shooting it, because we were shooting it and we were editing it. So I was kind of selecting, and by editing, I mean like we were selecting what I thought was would make it to the film and was good footage. Due to various reasons, whether it was visually interesting or musically interesting or something that he said in it that was interesting. So I was tagging all of that and doing it as we shot. The first timeline that I made was about 7.5 hours long. And after that, I sat and cried, thinking that I can't remove anything from it now. Okay. So then I sat and made a list of what was most essential for me, for me, as in the way I look at him, for me in the way I look at him, and in his story, like in his life, what are the things that I actually sat and made a list of it, many lists of it, and then like there were those, like you have cards and you move them around and see all those things I did, and it was I started editing it, and the cut that I thought was the absolute final cut was 2.5 hours long. I showed that to many people, and I got some good feedback from a few people, and they told me that looking at this 2.5 hour cut, it seemed like it could be a film about his music. It could be a film about Abdul Rashid Khan Sahab as you see him. It could be like it could go into 2-3 directions. So you have to choose a path, and then once you choose a path, you drop everything else, no matter how good it is. So that's what I did, and that was really, good feedback. Sorry, just a second. Yeah, so that's how I was able to edit it. Sorry,
But 2.5
just came, like I have to pay the bill. So that's
Okay.
I've done that, so I have more time now.
Okay. So I was saying at 2.5
that's how
hours.
I edited it.
Yeah, okay.
Sorry, what were you saying? I was a bit.
No, I was saying go on.
Yeah, so that's how editing. I find editing the most interesting process, especially in a documentary film, because that's where you're really you know what you're shooting before you're shooting, and you know the direction that you want to take, the questions that you want to ask, the things that you want to film and not film.
Yeah.
But it's when you're editing that you really, the story comes to life. At least that's been my experience with all the films that I've edited. So I enjoy that process a lot.
Yeah, I was saying I love the 2.5. It doesn't seem like usually people say for documentary keep it under 60 or 1.5 hours. I mean, I like the film because the long sessions that you have included of Ustad teaching students, and he just goes on and on, corrects the students. I felt like I was learning music. So like I think it totally works. Yeah.
I mean, a lot of people have told me after watching the film that, okay, why did you decide to keep it that long, that short, and all. I didn't know the rules of editing or any of those things because I never went to film school. So I went by gut, and every shot or every scene that's in the film has a life. So till I feel that it has that life going on, I keep it, and and so there are some, but there wasn't any style or anything. Maybe it will slowly evolve if at all I have but I didn't have any reference at that point, and I certainly didn't have a style of my own at that point. I was just trying to. I do understand music and I do understand rhythm, so maybe that helped a little bit. That actually immensely helped, especially editing that film.
Yeah.
Because also I've edited music in that film, which Akshay really, I wish he had joined now, but he has really helped me editing music, because in classical music, the pieces are really long. A musician is never singing for 4 minutes, 5 minutes, the way I've edited in the film. So Baba has been his compositions are 1 hour long, 40 minutes long, but I can't include that in a film. But I still want whatever I keep to have all the different parts of that composition, the the fast-paced part, the alap, the initial slow elaboration of the notes that he has, the beat pattern, everything. So it's actually cut, which is also something that like many music scholars and even editors have told me that, oh, how did you do that? We've never done that. Because in a many films have been made on classical music, but people keep, though they don't edit the music, they don't cut in between. So because I did not have the baggage of making films, I was not afraid to do that. I didn't even think it was a very radical thing. But I wanted to include different aspects of his gaiki in the small portions that I included. So we were cutting, but we were cutting on beat, which is something that Akshay understood very well, more than me. So that was very.
Yeah, and for a first-time filmmaker and editor and cinematographer, I think you guys have done an amazing job. How important is the preservation of oral knowledge, history in Hindustani classical music? Particularly, like in this film, we see a lot of students learning from him. So, how are they taking Rashid Saab's tradition forward? What do you know about that?
I am in touch with many of his students, his family, and like all the students are doing music. I mean, they may not be performing at big venues and all, but they're either teaching music, they're teaching his composition. Some of them are even performing well and doing well in music, and but they're all. I mean, it's music is still a very big part of their lives, so that is there. But when you asked how important it is to preserve, when he passed away, of course, there is the sadness of losing somebody you really love and are very close to. But I also felt that, so much knowledge and so much has just gone with him. I mean, I made an attempt to document only a small part of it, but there is so much that has just gone with him. When he died, his grandson called me, and me and another student of his, we went to his house and we scanned pages of poetry written by him. Many of it had been lost because they were lying in a place where there was there was moss and everything, and the pages had rotten away, and then they were but from whatever was remaining, I still have 10,000 pages of written poetry, which is all in Urdu and which is not a language I understand. So we've not been able to translate it or transcribe it or transliterate and all of those, and archive it properly. But that's something that I really want to do. Imagine the amount of treasure that is lying there, and so it's very important to document this kind of work and these stories, I feel, because it's not just one person, it's a whole tradition, it's a whole culture, it's years of knowledge which just goes with the passing of somebody like that. Luckily fortunately he had many students who he has taught, and so this knowledge continues to live through them and with them. But it still has to be, I feel that it has to be documented and preserved because it's so important.
We have a question from Regina. So she says, thank you for the film, capturing such a beautiful soul. I'm sometimes wondering if you caught some heated / troubled / real life struggle moments of the master.
Not really. As in some where he's shouting at somebody, or he was not somebody who was very angry. I mean, very rarely have I seen him. There was one photographer who had come while I was shooting from a magazine, and he was. He's the only person I've seen Baba shout at, and otherwise he was very gentle with his students. So maybe also he was at that age at that point that. No, I don't. I have spoken to a lot of his students, many of his students who do not feature in the film. Some of them were phone interviews and just phone calls, and people who learned from him when he was even before he moved to Calcutta in Raebareli and Salon. So when they all only had the most beautiful things to say about him, and it's not like I've removed some controversial parts or stuff like that, and I just didn't experience it. I just didn't see it while I was there. So I haven't deliberately made an attempt to make him look very good. He really, that's what I saw of him. Yeah.
That's wonderful. So this is both yours and Akshay's first film
Yes.
as cinematographer and director. What pulled you in? I feel like you've also touched on this already. And how did you approach the camera work in particular as director and cinematographer?
Again, it was mostly like we had a lot of times we had just one camera, and then sometimes we had two cameras. So if there were two cameras, I would have one and Akshay would have one. And it was again just by the one rule that we had was that we will not come in the way of what is happening. Okay, so we have not really choreographed anything in the film. Or we've tried not to disturb his classes and his life, on an everyday basis. But where we would place the camera and all, I wish we had thought more, but at that time we were just going by what we felt was right. Sometimes we would even argue about it because Akshay felt that one place was right, and I felt no. I mean, the magic is, you're missing the magic completely. It has to be on this side or the other side. But it was not really a knowledge of camera or camera angles or anything. It was what we were going by what we were feeling, and it was all like a gut feeling. Or I mean, now we know a little bit more. Now I've read more. I've seen many more films. I'm trying to understand this better but with Rasan Piya, I mean, I would be lying if I said that we really had. We were. I mean, it's not like we weren't thinking about it, but we didn't have a reference. For that. For cinematography or for direction or for editing. There was.
No, we get it. Any news on Akshay?
I've just been on, like, I think, I don't know. He has texted me reaching in 15 minutes. So.
Okay. Would you like to talk about your upcoming project?
I'm sorry
you're
about
working
Akshay.
on? No, that's fine. Yeah, so if you could talk about your upcoming projects, what you're working on.
I just finished editing a film for somebody. Her name is Vani Subramaniam. So her documentary about the journey of cinema in India. I just finished editing that. I love editing right now. I like it even more than directing my own film because directing is a lot of headache and you have to work with a lot of people, which I like, but I'm also not very good at it. What I love doing is sitting alone and editing and re-editing and doing the fine work on actually making a film. And so I'm doing a lot of that. I've been editing a lot all of last year, this Royston Abel's project and Vani's film and my own film, which I made with Film Southasia, which was then called City That Spoke to Me. I re-edited and completed it, and it's now called If I Could Tell You. So now I also have to spend the next couple of months trying to find a path for the film. I haven't started that, but I have to start applying to festivals and maybe find a distributor and do all of that. So that the next time I talk to you, I have some actual good advice for filmmakers too. I want to find out what it is. Like, how does one market and distribute films? And then once I find out, I'm going to tell everybody because nobody knows right now. Like, at least I don't know. And I'm having a very hard time trying to find out. So if I do find out, I'll make sure that I share that knowledge.
We'll bring you back on here just to share that knowledge.
Just for that. I'd like to come back.
Fantastic. This has been great. Thank you so much, Niharika, taking time out of your Euro trip, sitting in a cafe. And we loved your film. And please tell Akshay we're sorry he couldn't make it.
I'm sorry on his behalf, and he really wanted to come. It's just that everything got delayed and it was a bit tight. So
we'll see him in Delhi.
I'm definitely going to see you in Delhi. And thank you everybody for joining in, for watching the film, and thank you.
I was gonna say that too. Thank you everybody for joining in. And Screen Southasia is a monthly event. We screen older South Asian documentaries and have conversations with South Asian filmmakers. And we will be announcing the next film for January within the next week or so. Please follow us on Film Southasia and Himal South Asian on social media. You'll be able to find us and sign up for the monthly newsletter as well. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you, Niharika. Bye-bye.
Bye.